Chefs of the Future COF Nation, my name is Rich, and if you find this for the first time, would you consider subscribing and hitting that like button? Because all we do is talk food and hospitality news here. All right. Now, here on the show, this is a place to act as a resource for the next generation of hospitality prospects. In doing so, we ask ourselves the hard questions. One question we've been asking ourselves is experience versus education. Should there be any hospitality prospects going $100,000 in debt to be a baker or a culinarian? So, to help shed some light on this, we're joined today on the phone by a special guest. We're joined by the corporate executive chef of Settlers Hospitality. This man has many kitchens that he oversees, and he's responsible for staffing and hiring. That means he hires dozens of people. I figured he was the perfect person to talk to us today because he's the person that's hiring a lot of our hospitality prospects. So what is he looking for in workers, and what is his overall feel for education versus hospitality? And we're about to get this feel for right now. Hey, Travis, Chef.
What's going on?
How you doing, Chef?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out, getting up early, and joining us today.
Hey, no problem, man. I'm happy to help. Always happy to talk with you.
So we're talking lately over the show about trying to, set up the groundwork for the next future prospects of hospitality workers. Now, one question that's been floating around the show is education versus experience. What should be prioritized by the next generation of hospitality workers? Now, you're the corporate executive chef of Settlers Hospitality, meaning you're in a position to hire dozens of people every year. So you're in like the prime space to share your thoughts on it. So I just want to get your feel for it first before I start firing away.
Yeah, education versus experience. It kind of reminds me of the old philosophy talk of nature versus nurture. There's always a debate about it, and there's multiple sides to the story. It's not something that's black and white. It's something that's many shades of gray. I think that when I look at a resume, the first thing I look at is really experience in the field. I think when I look at an education, it depends on what I'm looking for. I have personally found that most community college graduates, pound for pound, show up better with their results on the job than graduates from places like Johnson Wales and Hyde Park for hands-on positions. Positions that are a little bit more administrative and not so hands-on in the kitchen. I find that graduates of certain schools like Johnson Wales and CIA might fit the bill for it, but it depends on the position.
I see.
I'll leave off on that note, and Rich, I'll let you take over.
Now, so that's interesting that you put that, because we're not here to discourage anyone from getting an education. And the key for the education is once you have your degree, you do enter the job field at a higher earning potential. And the positions you tend to grab with a college degree do tend to be higher earning. But it's saying when you look at a school like the Culinary Institute of America, a semester at the Culinary Institute is $19,270. Now, when you look at the statistics for how much the average United States hospitality worker makes, you're looking at about $24,000 a year. So when you have someone graduating from the CIA, $100,000 in debt, into a field in which they're statistically only supposed to make $24,000 a year, how can we, with a smile on our face, pat that kid on the back? It doesn't make any, for me personally, how can you say $100,000 for any hospitality degree makes sense? Even if you're that front office manager in the Hilton Hotel, $100,000 in debt for a hospitality degree. I mean, am I viewing it wrongly, or what's your?
No, I agree with you, Rich. I think that the numbers are disproportionate. I do think that the cost of living has grown exponentially where the wages have not. I also think that the price of education is absolutely astronomical in this country and quite honestly ludicrous. I graduated from a college called East Stroudsburg University. My mom finished up school relative to there too, and she went to school 20 years before I did. When she graduated college, she paid a total of around $9,000 in total for her whole college career, where I paid about $9,000 a semester. So that's a huge difference in 20 years in terms of payment for school. But when you look at the wage she had in college and you look at the wage I had in college, there was only $1.50 difference. So the math didn't seem to add up. But the one thing I would say, too, when it comes to a career in hospitality, the average worker does make what I consider subpar wage. I don't think $24,000 a year is good for anyone. However, I will say that $24,000 a year is what you make at an entry-level position in the beginning of your career. And through advancements in the career, just like any other, you will make more money. And a degree will help you get to higher places in the field. But I will say that I truly feel that experience is the key. You could have somebody with a degree, and they could be astronomically smart, or they could be an amazing person. But if they don't have the experience to tackle the basic job functions of what you're looking for them to do, then they don't have the criteria that meets the job. So where a degree might get you into places on paperwork, it's experience that's going to fit the bill for the job, period. And the way that you could obtain that is by experience in the work field. Right off the bat. And what I mean by that is, maybe in a position you'd start earlier in your career with a lower-end administrative job. Maybe you wouldn't have gotten that without a degree, and that low-end administrative job leads to a GM of a hotel or a position like a corporate executive chef. It can open up doors a little bit faster.
I get that, for sure. Now, when you look at the average wage for the average United States worker, you're looking at about $51,916 for the average worker in the United States. Compare that to the average hospitality worker, which is $24,000. So you're already inherently going into an industry which, statistically speaking, you're supposed to make half of what the average worker in the United States makes normally.
Yeah.
So it's not an industry to be made for money. The people that have longevity in this industry and that choose to willingly stick around are people that have the passion. Now, you got to just love it. That's the only way you could have any kind of long, prosperous career that you do halfway decent. Now, when you have kids falling in love with the industry or with cooking for what they see on TV, like cooking competitions and baking competitions, you're essentially pulling the wool over their eyes because it's a misrepresentation of what the food industry is. So they embark on that. They go to college, $90, $75, $80,000 in debt, and it's like setting them up almost for failure.
Well, as for TV, I don't think it's done the industry true justice. I believe you're correct. It doesn't really give you a true depiction of what this industry is like. I think the person who depicted this industry the realest was actually Anthony Bourdain with a book called Kitchen Confidential. And As for any job, I really believe it's important for the person who's looking to get in their career to educate themselves about the reality of their career. And one way they can do that is by getting a job in the industry before they go to school. I think I have this like innate belief that every single person in the world should work in the food industry for a short period of time. I believe that the average person who works in hospitality has a level of humbleness to them that people in other fields don't have. If I was ever to create a perfect world, I think it would be a world in which everyone worked in the hospitality industry serving somebody else. I think there's a level of humility that comes with it, a level of humbleness that comes with it, or at least is taught by it. I do agree that the wage ratios are not fair at all. I still don't understand why it exists like this. And it kind of does make me sad because people of this industry are some of the most beautiful and kind I've ever met. And it's an industry that I love. It's an industry that I grew up in. And it bugs me that the wages are not comparable to other fields. It also makes me feel like that's why there's such a decline in the restaurant industry today, is because the jobs aren't as appealing as others to the younger generation. We're dealing with a generation of people who are growing up with technology that have this understanding that they can work smarter and not harder, which is true nowadays. And quite frankly, we're seeing the industry decline because there's not as many workers going into it. And it's because of the way that the industry has been portrayed from the outside world. People of the kitchens have been looked down upon. Dishwashers aren't a desirable job. And it's because of the pay. It's the way that people have been treated for the last 20 years in this industry. And that needs to change, and I think that's what we're seeing. Society is trending on that change, and I think a lot of employers are taking the initiative, like Settlers Hospitality, to pay higher wages in the area. I think that this is an important cultural change, and it's a shame that COVID happened. However, I believe it's integral for the future, and I think it's well-deserved for the people of it.
Oh, yeah. And I think COVID really took what would come to light in years and made it come to light in months. It really exacerbated the process of exposing, the underlining, gaps in the system. And, as it pertains to the food industry, what we're here to talk about today. But, so when you look at the numbers, right, 69% of hospitality workers are under the age of 25. And 50% of all Americans' first jobs are in a restaurant. So this conversation is crucial. If we could get this conversation to them, that would do so much because they're in their early stage of development. They're still in that esquire stage of their life where they can make their own decisions. If they're going to choose to spend the next 2 decades in the food industry, at least they could do it from a stance of being educated and informed, saying, okay, yeah, I understand my potential earning in this field, and I'm not disillusioned by what I see on TV, as you were stating. And I absolutely agree, because that's where you have people going into the industry with a misrepresentation, and why these conversations are so important.
It's absolutely true, and I think it's beautiful that TV offers other jobs within the industry. I've worked with a lot of young people that have come through and have said, I was on Hell's Kitchen, or I was on Chopped, or I was on this episode of X, Y, and Z. And I think it's interesting that television is another outlet for chefs to work in a field that's related. However, I do feel like the portrayal of chefs and also the kitchen is greatly misrepresented. I believe people glorify cooking as a easy and presentable job, and a prestigious undertaking, when in fact working as a chef is grueling, it's tiresome, and it's a labor of love, because you don't get to see your family on holidays, you don't get to see your friends on their special events, and it's a job that requires insane hours throughout a period of time. So Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. The representation of the culinary industry on TV is not a real depiction of what it is.
Not at all. Because let's be honest, like the Food Network, they're in the business of entertaining people. They want eyeballs on the screen. They want clicks on YouTube. They're not necessarily try to set up the next generation of hospitality prospects. They're not in the goal of educating them. And that's what's so disappointing. And that's why I diverge from uh, the Food Network and things of that nature, because they don't have no analytical programming, not a single programming dedicated to progressing the people that's actually in the industry that they're exploiting. It's like, yeah, you want to film us, doing our thing in the kitchen, or TV magic pulling already prepared things out the oven, but are you really talking to the people that's cooking the food? What problems plague them day in and day out? So that's why, this show exists. So that people like us that spend 13, 14 hours in the kitchen, they have a place to come join the conversations as you doing, get their voice heard, and hopefully it get picked up by people that's in similar positions.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So again, thank you so much. This was enlightening. You
If I can give a word of advice to anybody looking to get in the culinary field,
yeah, please.
I feel like now would be an appropriate time. And I don't know what the audience knows about me, but what I can explain is that I have 20 plus years in the field as a chef. I started my career in the kitchen while I was in college, actually before college, and I'm still in kitchens as well as administrating. And what I can tell from my 22 years of experience in this field is there's two things that are widely important to a person who wants to succeed. One, an education is important, but you don't need to spend a ton of money on it. I found that the best hires I've ever had came from community colleges, which were far less than cost of those large colleges. I feel like I got employees that were better experienced, more level-headed, and a little bit more humble. So when I look at resumes based on paper alone, I would always hire a culinary grad from a secondary school before I would hire somebody from CIA or Johnson Wales. That's one way to save money on your education, is to use the opportunities of community colleges, which are fantastic. And then the other thing I would say to those people of the kitchens is save for your retirement, because you're going to put 20 to 30 years in this field and you're going to feel tired after it. And you're either going to want to change or you're going to want to stick with it, but you're going to want to retire. So make sure that your retirement is a very important investment from a very young age.
Yes, sir. Listen, look, when you watch this video, you're going to see the face I'm making when you say that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, preach, please. Continue.
No, I mean, those are the two important rules to me for people of the kitchen. And then there's one third important rule, and that's to remember that when you're in the kitchen and you're cooking, it comes from a place of love. And in order for you to stick out your time in this career, so to speak, you have to have your love in the heart for what you're doing, because if you don't, you're going to get tired of it, you're going to walk away. I think the one thing that media has changed about food is it's made every single person a critic. And it's kind of unfortunate, because all those critics are out there have never spent 110 hours in a week in a kitchen. And I really think before someone criticizes as a chef, they should live a week in their life. They should walk a mile in their steps. They should deal with the things they have to deal with before they criticize something about their food, because after all, it's something that's objective.
Yeah, so true. Like, what we may think is the most extravagant dish in the world, the next person may not think it's so hot. That's kind of the beauty about food as well, right? It's extremely subjective.
Yeah.
But what shouldn't be is the passion that you bring to whatever you do. And this astute viewing of any field, whether it is not even related to hospitality, should be taken And seriously, what is your specific industry? You know, take the time out, even if you want to be a a cosmetologist, take the time out, survey your industry. What does it take to be successful in your industry? And approach it, because community colleges, like you were saying and stressing, are a valuable option. And a lot of the times, they're a better option. But
Absolutely.
what I found like surprising is like when I was in college, like the not so much now, but the creme de la creme was the CIA. You know, and as the years continued, you start hearing, you know, all the horror stories coming out of the school, like they're lowering their expectations and they're accepting a lot of people. You have the professors actually teaching people how to hold knives because they lowered their standards so low. And it's, yeah, that's a,
I would never knock any school or anybody who strives to do anything. I just personally couldn't see paying $100,000 to go to school for a field that pays the way that it does.
that's true. So again, and you were saying you to be spending that much, and then for employers to be discouraged from hiring you just by seeing the name of the school you went to. And you know, this is CIA. You know, this is Johnson and Wales. You know, these are like at one point like these schools to go to, and now this is actively working against you when you see their schools on your resume. And it's not, you know, just you. This thousands, like hundreds of potential employers that feel the exact same way in our industry.
So, like, speaking of like interviews and selecting people, right? So, say if you wanted to go to school for a chef, or you wanted to school for a front of house manager, or something that would be considered like middle management, you're likely to hire somebody from, let's say, Northampton Community College, which I think is one of the best community colleges for culinary in the country. I would be more likely to hire somebody from there than CIA or Johnson Wales. And that's a school where, sure, you're going to go for your 8 semesters or 10 semesters or however long it takes, and it's going to cost you about $30,000 to go to school. But that's achievable. That's a loan you can pay off in the lifetime of this industry. That's a loan that you can pay off within the first 10 years that you're out of school. Now, if I was looking for someone in a position like a chief operating officer or, say, CEO, chief executive officer, or financial officer, then I might look to a school like CIA or Johnson and Wales, which may have more administrative programs behind them or more financial programs behind them. But it depends on the position, and it most definitely depends on the person.
Agreed. Now, just before I let you go, what's your take on degree programs compared to certificate programs?
You're going to have to fill me in on that one, Rich.
Like, as far as there's colleges that you could go to that doesn't give you an accredited college degree, but they give you like a certificate of completion. So,
yes.
yeah, so like you could go like Lincoln Culinary, which is a great program. They teach you the necessities, and you get a similar education to what you would get with a degree program, but you don't have like a formal accredited college degree, but you have the formal education with a certificate. And I've worked side by side phenomenal culinarians that have certificates of completion in culinary, but not necessarily a degree in it.
I'm actually ecstatic for stuff like that. My thing is, like, obviously work experience in the field is great, but if someone shows me that they're taking the extra step to educate themselves however they can, that's already a good sign to me. anybody who's going to take any measure of education, whether it's free or not, or expensive or not, or if it's this school or that school, that shows me that they have a care for their field. And that's important right off the bat. So if you came to me and said, hey, I've got 5 years cooking experience, I was a sous chef at this place, but I also got a certificate in culinary from this place, that's definitely an added bonus. That shows me that there's some level of want for your own self. And I think that's a very good thing.
And that candidate is just as in the running for the job as the degreed employee at that point.
Absolutely. It's funny because a lot of employers have different processes to their interview stages. And for something like a sous chef position or an executive chef position or a head chef position, there's a couple stages to these interviews that I conduct. And one of the most important factors to it is what I consider a stage. And that's a day when this person who's applying for the job comes in and they cook me a couple of things and they work around the staff and they're in the kitchen while the kitchen is in live production, producing something for us. And that gives me a very close idea of how they work with others, how they conduct themselves, how cleanly they are. And then based on what they produce, I can see how much experience they really have. And that is a great thing to do in your interview process. And it'll really show where someone shines right off the bat with their education or not.
Like the hiring process and what like people should be done, that could be an episode in and by itself. Like, if I'm being honest, like that's straight gold. That's straight gold for people that watch the show and that follow us. Like, that's all they're interested in, because people that participate and like comment on the show, they are, very much so high school students, second year college students that follow us. I have even people with 30 years in the industry following the show, and they could take away things from that conversation from both ends. The hiring, the employer, and the worker.
Maybe what we should do, Rich, is talk about, maybe do an episode on the interview process and also kind of like a job track. And what I mean by job track is how to obtain your goals in your career, like how to obtain positions that you want in this career.
Mm-hmm.
If you thought it would be helpful, I would definitely sit in for another episode.
Oh, please. Look. Please. Like, absolutely. We'll make it happen. Thank you again for taking the time out. We were supposed to keep it short. We're almost 30 minutes in, but this is an awesome conversation.
Well, thank you, Rich, for having me. I love talking about the field that I'm in, and I hope this is helpful to you, and I most definitely hope it's helpful to other people seeking this information.
Yeah, thank you again, Chef. Thank you.
Yep, have a great day.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
So, that was Chef Travis, the corporate executive chef for hospitality, for Settlers Hospitality out in Pennsylvania. They have restaurants like the Dock that they take care of, Settlers Inn, amongst others. Yeah, but again, as you would say it, yes, stress in education, but you don't have to go insane and spend crazy amounts of money to get it done. And I'm out.